Hello everyone. I hope you are able to see me. We are about to start our presentation and we are going to talk about in next 45 minutes about something very interesting, something very disruptive in the economy today, and that is about blockchain. But before I get started, I would like to introduce myself and I would switch over to a presentation before I get started. So today we are going to discuss about blockchain and what blockchain is, how it is beneficial to us, and what is the actual requirement today from economy and from a trust and an integrity perspective. So being said that, I first introduce myself. So a bit about myself. I am Ritesh Modi. I am an ex-Microsoft evangelist and architect. And there's some of the coordinates for connecting with me are mentioned over here. You can take a note of it. I'm sure they will also be mentioned about it towards the end of it. And this is my upcoming book on blockchain and Solidity. So Solidity is a programming language for blockchain, and if somebody who really wants to go deep into it can definitely read this book as well. Apart from that, I am an expert on blockchain, artificial intelligence, infrastructure, cloud, and DevOps. I've written multiple books. I've written already 5 books, and already 2 books are in the making. So I'm an author for MSGN Magazine as well as the New Stack, and speaker at national and international forums, and completely a technical enthusiast and an avid blogger. So you can say that anything that's coming up on technology is where my interest lies, and I love speaking, I love talking, I love teaching, and so blockchain is one of my favorite subjects, and I'm doing a lot of work around it to make sure that people are aware of blockchain and the kind of impact it can bring to their career and to their organizations and overall to the economy that we are in. So what is blockchain? So this is, before we get into that, I just want to quote a famous saying from the CEO of IBM earlier, and that talks about that if you understood in 1995 the opportunities and threats that the internet would ultimately present to your company or industry, what would you have done differently in hindsight? That is where we are with blockchain today. So if I look at my career, I definitely would have done things differently in hindsight when internet was launched than what I have actually done in the past. So that is where we are in the blockchain days today. We are in the same cusp actually. We are trying to understand what blockchain is, how it can be used into industry and domains, and how it can impact us. And the kind of impact it will have and that you're going to witness in future is so immense that in hindsight we'll come back and talk about it, saying that we might have done things different. So this is our opportunity. This is our time where we can catch up with this technology, we can catch up with this paradigm, a shift completely in terms of computing, which will impact not only us but the entire society and world at large. So how will blockchain technology propel your innovation strategy? How will it disrupt your business model? How will it create new revenue stream, and how would you shape up your career are some of the important questions that might be coming up in your mind, you might be thinking about it, that how is it making any impact to any of us in any of the ways we are interacting with each other. And that is precisely what I'm going to talk about in next half an hour to 40 minutes, and we'll try to answer some of your queries as well, so that we leave no things unnoticed and ungone by. So what is blockchain? So before I even get into what blockchain is, I want to take a step back and understand where we are coming, why we are coming towards blockchain, what is the history of blockchain, and how we reach here. So keeping the slide as is, I just want to bring few important topics in front. So we started with mainframes. A mainframe was a technology of 70s and 80s. Where we had one single large monolithic big computer as big as your room and hall rooms, for example, and all has to come physically be there to actually work on them. From those mainframes, we moved towards client-server computing, where servers were were remotely accessed from client machines, and the architecture were built around that. And then came the internet. Internet helped us more progress on client-server technologies, and also made distributed computing, and which actually ensured that all computers could be connected to each other. There could be multiple servers and clients, and eventually internet gave rise to a lot of other applications of internet using like mobile devices, apps, and things like that. And then came the cloud technology. But if you see any of these paradigms from the beginning till the cloud that I'm talking of, which is like maybe 2 to 3 years back when the cloud started prominently, you will notice that they all are centralized applications. Everything was centralized in terms of designing your applications, designing your solutions, the business solutions, the way you were creating any application you look at it. Say, for example, look at the way your railway reservation system works today. It is a centralized application which is controlled by an organization which happens to be Indian Railways. Think about any other application you might have seen in your application. Think about SAP that you might have deployed within your organization. Think about the applications you're consuming today. It could be your Exchange, your emails, it could be your presentations, it could be your documents on your Google Drive and things like that. They all are centralized applications. Why do you call them centralized? I call them centralized application because they are in control of an individual or a group of people or an organization, and which means that it is, you are not, as an individual or a user or a customer, are not aware of what's happening over there behind the scenes. So important concept, the first line is a distributed database ledger. So blockchain is a distributed database ledger. What does it mean? So let me break it down. It's quite a mouthful. So let's understand distributed first. What is distributed? Distributed means you have an application or you have a service, business service, which your consumers are consuming it, which is not deployed at a single location, which is not available in a single location. What it means is that it is replicated across multiple computers. So there are multiple nodes or computers across internet, across geographies, and they all are connected to each other, and the architecture is built in such a way that each component has been divided among these nodes and computers. When we do this, and you have a system where there is no failure system available, which means even if there is one component which can fail and bring the entire system down, you don't have a distributed system. So in fact, when you have a system where even if a component goes down, but your application still continues to be available, it's called distributed system. Now, but then what is decentralized? What is decentralized? So decentralization, if you have heard about peer-to-peer network, in which a lot of computers, lot of nodes are joined together, and they all are talking to each other on internet, via internet or intranet or whatever mechanisms you might have. If they are able to talk to each other and exchange information, then they are on peer-to-peer network. And we have used a lot of peer-to-peer network in the past. And one example I would like to bring is how many people of you might have in the last 1 year might have bought any CD, or for that matter any music that you might have bought from as a CD or as a drive or something like that. I'm sure the possibilities is very less that you might have bought a CD last 1 year. Today you are downloading music, today you are downloading or exchanging music among yourself because of the way the peer-to-peer network has disrupted the music industry in the 95s. So I'm sure you heard about the protocol or the company called Napster. Napster was one of the first companies that actually introduced peer-to-peer network, and it actually helped bring a large-scale peer-to-peer network to the public in general. What Napster did was, before Napster, if I had to produce a music or if I have to consume a music, I always have to go to an exchange or I have to go to a distributor who is acting as an intermediary. So if I was a composer, I would definitely go to a company like a big company or distributor and get into an agreement, and if they like my music, they will say that we will do the marketing and distribution for you. I'll produce the music and I'll give it to them. I am in no way control of who is consuming my music at all. At the same time, there are consumers who will buy those CDs, who will buy those devices where the music is available from the distributor. So the producer and consumer are not in contact with each other at all. Now, when Napster came into picture, it brought peer-to-peer network in which the music could be distributed. The consumer can produce his music and put onto the network. Consumers can directly get this music directly from the producer from this network and exchange among themselves. So now there's no need of this intermediary, and that was what decentralization can do to your business. This is how disruptive it could be to your business. So blockchain is a distributed, decentralized application. And so next that we talk about is that it is a ledger. Now, what is a ledger? Ledger, if you think about it, is a place where you store data. A data which is not mutable. I typically give an example saying that if you deposit some money into your bank last month and it's written onto your ledger in your bank, can you go back to the bank today and say, I deposited 10,000 rupees, I did a mistake, can you change that to 5,000 and give me back 5,000? What will be the response from a bank? Bank will say that you just cannot do this because it's already written on a ledger. And if you really want to change anything on the ledger, you need to create a new transaction to affect changes to the old transaction. So maybe you withdraw 5,000 rupees, we will do a new transaction, we will debit that amount, and eventually you will have a balance of 5,000. What I'm trying to say is ledgers are immutable in nature. You cannot change it. So if you have a distributed, decentralized application where you are storing your data onto a ledger which cannot be changed, and then you are getting into the blockchain world. That is where you start getting into the blockchain world. But how different is it than peer-to-peer network? It's primarily the same thing we are talking of, that peer-to-peer network was also able to distribute, they were also storing data and things like that. So the distinction comes when you try to bake into integrity, when you try to bring into trust into your peer-to-peer networks. So earlier peer-to-peer networks didn't have the integrity or trust factor. What it meant was that you could not rely on the other node, or you could not rely on the person who was sitting on the other node, because there was no way to figure out if the person was genuine or not. So there was a high possibility of malicious users in peer-to-peer network. At the same time, there was also possibility of a technical failure in peer-to-peer network. So there was a less reliance on that factor. But when you can bring integrity and trust into this peer-to-peer network, then you open up a new sea of opportunities. And that's what blockchain actually did. So blockchain, what it did was, it introduced integrity and trust factor within the peer-to-peer network, so that a user, when he is interacting with somebody, or he is doing a transaction with somebody, if he is storing something on his ledger, he is absolutely sure that the transaction is genuine and the person who on the other side is also genuine, and he can verify that. So there are people who can initiate transaction, people who can verify those transactions, and people who can store those transactions, and that's what makes blockchain such a big disruptive factor. So if you have to define blockchain, what is blockchain? Blockchain can be defined in 4 different ways. It is a data structure, and we'll see why is it a data structure. It is an algorithm. We will also see why is it an algorithm. We will see that it is also designed to create distributed peer-to-peer decentralized application, and also it's a suite of it's a integration between people and technology coming together to make things happen. So continuing the same topic of what blockchain is, in a more deeper manner, it's a distributed database available on large number of computers shared together, each computer being connected to each other. The data is stored in a way which can be exchanged easily among these nodes. There's a high level of trust factor between all of these nodes, so that any transaction that you do can be verified and stored. And eventually you think about how this integrity and trust factor is coming into blockchain. So when you think about it, there's a massive use of cryptography that happens on these blockchain storage. So we'll go and look into them now. So one of the big immediate concept that you should be looking into or thinking about is the concept of hashing. So what is hashing? Hashing, if you think about it, is something you have been, it's quite easy to understand. It's just a piece of function to which if you send an input, it gives you an output. As simple as this. So from a hashing point of view, but there's few uniqueness from a hash point of view. What is hashing? So if you think about it, hashing has important properties like, for example, if you send a particular text to a hash, it will generate a fixed amount of output. What it means is if you can see on the screen, I have typed hi, and for hi, the hash for it is shown below in yellow, and that's a fixed output, which means is no matter how many times I put hi, the output will remain the same. So this is an algorithm of hashing called SHA-256, which is giving me this output. So the output is 256 characters. Now every time I put hi, I'll get the same output. That's one of the properties. The second property of hashing is that even if I change a single character from as an input, my hash will change completely. There will be no way you can identify what the previous hash was. The third property of hashing is that it is one way. If I give you a hash of an input, there is no way you can go back to the original input. So if I have a hash, I will have no information what was the actual input about it. Finally, the fourth property of a hash is that if you bring entire content on earth, and you pass it on to this hash function, the output will still be these 256 characters. And so how is that immutability factor, how is that trust and integrity factor is brought into blockchain? Is the way how blockchain works. So what happens is when you do a transaction, the transaction is hashed. As I just showed you, all the data in a transaction is hashed, and those multiple transactions are placed into a block, and when that block itself is then hashed together. So when you have multiple transactions and you hash those transactions into a block, and you have multiple such blocks, then you are creating a chain of blocks, and that's what blockchain is all about. So that's how you store. When I said it's a data structure, blockchain is a data structure, this is the data structure blockchain follows. That you have transactions, you have blocks, and the beauty about these blocks is that each block is connected to the other block, and that's the chain piece of it. So when you have this kind of arrangement, think about the power of it, because imagine that you want to change the transaction in block number 52, the second transaction. As soon as you change the transaction, any information, for example, if you are able to do so, the hash of that transaction will change, because any small change will change the hash completely. That's what we talked about. And as soon as the transaction changes, the hash changes, the hash of the block has to change, because the block hash is dependent on all these transaction hashes. And once the hash of the block change, so whoever is referring to this block using its hash also has to change. So now the hash of the next block also has to change, and similarly all the blocks from the starting point of wherever I did the change to the first block, I need to keep changing all the blocks, and all the blocks, if I have to change, if I have millions of such blocks, I might be actually destroying my entire ledger itself. So is it really worth doing that kind of a change? So that's what brings the beauty of blockchain, that this is what the immutability ledger factor of a blockchain. So the transactions are stored as hashed, multiple transactions are hashed together to generate a block, multiple blocks are linked together using the hashes of the block, and so that if you have to change anything into the one of the transactions, you have to change all the transactions, all the blocks onto the chain. So how does a transaction happens on a blockchain? Primarily what happens is you have multiple nodes. All nodes are peer-to-peer networks where the ledger that we just saw, the blocks and transactions, are available to every node onto the blockchain. And so when a transaction happens, it reaches to one of the nodes. The nodes try to write that into one of the node will try to write that into a ledger, and that ledger will then promote or propagate across all the ledgers or all the nodes onto the network. So let's take an example of how a transaction happens. let's say a Sam wants to send some dollars to Mark. So transaction reaches to the network. But when the transaction reaches to the network, a network is composed of multiple nodes. So it has to be decided which node needs to write. So there is a concept of called miners in blockchain, which is as good as as equivalent to an accountant in a commerce terms, which means that a person who is able to write information onto the ledgers. So a miner is nothing but a person who is able to write information to your ledger on blockchain, like the way an accountant is able to write information onto your books of accounts. So if you see, the transactions are divided into two different phases. First, you submit a transaction, it reaches to the network, a miner picks up, miner writes it to the ledger, and then it gets promoted to all the other nodes onto the ledger. Now imagine the possibilities. One node tries to say, I want to change a transaction, and it does so. When it does so transaction, and rest of the ledgers don't have that piece of information. So when it does this and tries to push this transaction to other ledgers, they try to verify whether this transaction is valid or not. If they find that the transaction is not valid, they reject it, and they in fact remove that accountant or that miner from the network itself. But if it's a genuine transaction, the accounts are updated and the block is replicated and stored on all the nodes. So this is just a brief introduction I'm giving to you at maybe 30,000 feet level. When we actually get into this course on this program, we will definitely go much more deeper into it. We will see each and every component of it, understand from a business point of view how it impacts, understand from a technology point of view, understand from the implementation point of view, so that at the end of this program, you are completely aware of how the entire blockchain works. So some of the major blockchains that we have today is Bitcoin, Ethereum, Hyperledger, Coda, and Symbiont. So one of the things that comes immediately to my mind, and when I have talked to I have interacted with multiple people who are part of blockchain and Bitcoins, the first thing that comes to the mind is Bitcoin is blockchain. And I'm sure a lot of people on this group itself might be thinking that there is no difference between a Bitcoin or a blockchain. They are one and the same thing. So, or there might be people who think that Bitcoin and blockchain are different. So there are a lot of myths around it, and I just want to clarify that Bitcoin, when it got launched, was the first product of blockchain. So blockchain, think of it as an architecture on which, think of it as a system of paradigm through which Bitcoin was made. So Bitcoin was the first implementation of blockchain, and blockchain is the underlying technology on which the Bitcoin is stayed on. So similarly, you can create multiple other kind of applications by using blockchain. So blockchain is the primary base on which everything is dependent on. So whether it's a Bitcoin, Ethereum is another major blockchain, and we are going to concentrate a lot on Ethereum apart from Bitcoin, where we try to see how we can extend existing blockchain to create industry solutions, solutions on fintech, solutions on industry like travel and things like that, so that people can create decentralized application based on their expertise, based on their organization needs and the industry needs. So blockchain is disrupting all industries. Where are we today? So if you think about it, blockchain has taken really massive leap over the last couple of years. We are now at a junction where the leap will be cumulative and it will be exponential, because now people have started understanding the need of blockchain. We have already seen an example that's very live going on currently in our economy. For example, PNB, if you look at, there was a massive fraud where people inside the bank and outside the bank could manage to do a fraud as big as we've seen now. And this could have been completely avoided had the blockchain thing been implemented in these organizations. So if you have implementation of blockchain for banking, in which you integrate every individual, you digitize all the transactions, you put all of them, bring them together, bring all the systems together, and create a workflow through which on the blockchain itself, so that one action goes to another action, and another action results in third action, and it happens automatically on blockchain. So that, and it is verified by the miners before even writing to the ledger. And if it is not on the ledger, you will not be able to do a transaction. And kind of things can actually help create solutions which will prevent such kind of action that we see today nowadays. So not only financials, not only fintech, but it is going to impact almost every industry. And that's why it says that this is a big revolution that will bring in, and in hindsight you will think that you should have caught up with blockchain much earlier than what you have done now. So that's the entire idea about blockchain from a disrupting point of view. So that's with the slides. Now I'd like to talk to you and understand if you have any questions, would like to answer you from a technology perspective, from how blockchain can bring about changes to your future and careers and things like that. Moreover, this is where we stand today from a blockchain point of view, that if you see, for example, there are a lot of implementations. For example, banks in Australia, stock exchanges in Australia have already started using applications. They already started using decentralized applications built on blockchain. You already see a lot of companies across the West, US and Europe have also started deploying blockchain solutions, decentralized applications, because it brings an immense amount of integrity and trust, and nobody controls it. So people like talking to such companies, people like talking to work with such applications, which brings high level of integrity and trust. So with that, if you have any questions, please feel free to type it. We'll be more than happy to answer you from this paradigm, this technology, from this architecture point of view. Thank you very much. So I'm just going through some of the questions that's there on the chat, and I'll see which one we can take it up. So there's a question of any jobs in India related to blockchain. If you go, I tell you, there are numerous, I come across at least 10 new jobs in my mailbox every day. Go to any prominent job portal, talk to any recruiter. Today, blockchain is in high demand, and everybody needs blockchain developers. Whether you are on private groups like Telegram or WhatsApp, you will also see a lot of people asking about blockchain developers. There's no dearth of it. It's growing leaps and bounds. In fact, there are no people today who can fill up this demand. There is no supply today. People are looking for blockchain developers, and they are really struggling to figure out even one candidate who can come for an interview for blockchain. So that's the state of blockchain across the globe, not only in India. And we are trying to make sure that there are enough blockchain people, enough people who can really make an impact to the economy. So with that, what I will do, I'll take your questions offline and try to reply to them. And meanwhile, what I will do is, I'll invite Amar, who can talk about this program in much more details. But just to provide a brief introduction, that we have an industry program on blockchain and fintech, and industry leaders like Ripple, PayPal, Paytm, ICICI are all part of this particular program. Because we are trying to shape up the future of individuals, trying to shape up the future of career, and also organizations, because there's a lot of demand from organizations, but they're not getting people. In fact, reskilling is one of the big factor from a blockchain perspective, because this is a completely paradigm shift to the way we were creating applications and softwares, and this is going to change in future. And the sooner we learn about it, the better it is, because we can really make an impact out of it. So I'm looking at some more questions right now before I invite Amma. Can we also discuss about how blockchain adoption in India? So Costa was asked, can we also discuss about how blockchain adoption in India, all blockchain gyan and all can be obtained by doing research on internet? So blockchain gyan, definitely. In fact, when I go to my doctor today, and because of some ailment, and the doctor is advising me, I start countering doctor that no, I'm having cold maybe because I can take maybe this medicine or maybe alternate medicine and things like that. The first thing doctor says that you have gone to Google and searched a lot on it, and now you have become a doctor. Now that's possible, that you have a lot of information on blockchain. In fact, you will get information on internet about everything on the world. It's not about getting information. It's about getting structured information, understanding step by step each and every detail and component, bringing them together and creating a real-time understanding and application out of it is what is important. So having a comprehensive end-to-end knowledge about a technology, it involves a lot of effort from bringing them together. At the same time, make sure that you can impart them together as well. So that's what we are trying to do over here. In India, if you see, there's a lot of adoption going on right now from a blockchain perspective. Not only from private institutes, but government, public sector, private sector, institutions, they all are talking about blockchain from an economic point of view, from what's happening today. So, and you can see the impact of it, that in our budget, blockchain was mentioned. In our recent interaction, in the recent conference, even our Prime Minister mentioned about the blockchain. And there are a lot of other places where blockchain is getting introduced. So there's no dearth of blockchain developers, demand for blockchain developers. There's a lot of demand, but the supply is not there. So blockchain is going to be big time differentiator. How is blockchain different from Torrent? Thanks, Basil, for asking this question, because Torrent is a peer-to-peer network. But the difference between is what I talked about is that there is no integrity or trust built into Torrent. So Torrent is a peer-to-peer network, but when you build trust and integrity into your peer-to-peer network, you have the possibility and storing those information onto a ledger which is immutable is what makes blockchain different than Torrent. And how you do it, how you extend it, is what is important in blockchain, which was not possible using Torrent. Rakesh has asked, I want to know whether real-time reconciliation can be achieved using blockchain where multiple hops are involved in payment. So if you look at some of the interesting protocols that have arisen or have come up using blockchain, including things like Ripple, who is also part of the partner on this program, is all about payments. It's making real-time payments. A payment which takes 2 days, 3 days across continents can be done within seconds using blockchain technology. And that's precisely is happening today. It's completely disrupting the way the payments happen across borders. Dinesh has asked, Ritesh, what is the solution for scalability in blockchain? What is its biggest issue as of now? So blockchain is a relatively new paradigm. It's an evolving paradigm, and it is getting mature as we speak. So scalability had been a big factor, a big challenge for blockchain because of the way it works, because of the way it's architected, and the way the entire solution is built around. So blockchain can be a challenge from a scalability point of view. But needless to say, there are advanced systems, there are advanced concepts like consensus mechanism. I'll just take it through that. Proof of work, for example, is a consensus mechanism that miners use to actually write to the ledger, and can have a challenge from a scalability point of view. But if you implement something like a proof of authority or a proof of stake, which we will discuss in details, then the scalability factor goes much higher. Then you have a system where you can write transaction much faster, much better, and cheaper in terms of usage of your compute power. So scalability is something we will discuss in detail, and there are multiple options to increase the scalability of a blockchain system. So that will be discussed in details eventually. But needless to say, you can challenge the scalability factor in a blockchain without any problem. So let me see what are the other technical questions on this. Okay, so do we have any drawbacks on blockchain? Mahesh asked. So obviously every system has its own pros and cons. Blockchain also has its drawback. So definitely, although the pros or the benefits of a blockchain overweighs what the cons are, I'll just mention few of the cons of a blockchain. So scalability was somebody you mentioned, I just talked about, is one of the drawbacks in the implementation that I've seen in many places. Needless to say, you can improve the scalability by implementing it right, but a lot of people don't know about how to do that. So knowledge about blockchain is one of the biggest drawback today I see in the economy, that people don't have much information about blockchain. Second, blockchain is not meant for every type of application. For example, if I am doing transactions, if I'm storing data, if I'm storing my assets into blockchain, is where I should look into. So if I have to do some counterfeiting kind of an application, for example, say where did the fish that I am going to eat right now, in which ocean it originated, from that ocean, how was it transported to a cold storage? Cold storage, how did it move into processing unit? How did it move from processing unit to which location it went to, which distributor, and from which distributor it came to which retailing shop, and what was the humidity, what was the temperature? Those are valid cases for a blockchain, because once it's written on the blockchain, nobody can modify it, and I can be pretty assured that this fish I'm eating is actually from an ocean which is genuine, or which has been maintained well. But if I take an example where I am going to, for example, download a music, for example, that doesn't make sense for me to put onto a blockchain. So a lot of applicability of a blockchain is on fintech, where you do a lot of transactions with fiat money, and you need to have accountability and verification of them. So fintech is a big use case for blockchain. In fact, we have just talked about few of the use cases before, so you can look into them as well. So Basil again asked me a question, Ritesh, will there be multiple books of ledger in which a transaction are recorded, or is it one-to-one transaction? So when you do a transaction on a blockchain, it's written onto the first ledger, into one of the ledgers, and that ledger is on one of the nodes, and that ledger gets replicated across all the nodes onto that peer-to-peer network. So everyone has a ledger with the transaction into it, so that everybody can vouch for that transaction to happen. So even if one guy deletes the transaction, others guys still have those transactions, and that's the beauty of a blockchain is. So Ambrish is asking, can we use this technology as far as credit engines are concerned? Absolutely, you can definitely use this blockchain technology for credit engines. In fact, there are a lot of applications I have witnessed myself who are getting built for lending, peer-to-peer networks, lending as well as for credit. So somebody is bringing money using on blockchain, somebody is consuming those money, so those lending paradigms are still getting big time on blockchain as well. So Ragasima has asked, it's only for technical people or anyone can do this? So this blockchain has multiple applications. It has a business side of it, it has a technology side of it, and people who have a bit of information about both are the best people who can make the best out of it. So having some knowledge about technology is important, but not a complete geek is needed to understand blockchain. So Kritika asked, as you were talking about Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc., these are cryptocurrencies or blockchain? Oh, fantastic question. Thanks for asking this. So the distinction between a blockchain and a cryptocurrency is as different as a Bitcoin or a blockchain. And I just talked about that Bitcoin or a cryptocurrencies are just one of the implementations of a blockchain. So if I have to print a movie ticket, I create a stencil for that, and I create movie tickets from that stencil. Now that stencil is what makes the blockchain, but the ticket is what you see is the cryptocurrency. So I can create multiple types of such stencils. I can have multiple utilization or multiple use cases I can use blockchain for. I can use blockchain for land registry, and there is no cryptocurrencies involved into it. I can create blockchain for my flight information, all travel information going into, from an airline point of view, that all information goes into blockchain, and there is no cryptocurrencies involved into it. You can still work with the fiat money in a bank account. So cryptocurrencies is just one of the implementations of blockchain. And when you think about Ethereum is also a cryptocurrency, and it also provides a platform for a blockchain to write your own use cases onto it. And so please be clear about it, that Bitcoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin is purely a cryptocurrency built on blockchain. Ethereum is also a cryptocurrency built on blockchain, but Ethereum also provides you a platform through which you can create your own applications on blockchain. So that's the beauty of it. I'll take more questions eventually offline, but I would like to pass on the baton to Amar, who can talk to you more about the program and its benefits. So over to you, Amar. Thank you.
Thank you, Ritesh. Hello everyone, good morning. Thanks Ritesh, it was very insightful. Blockchain technology is one of the most disruptive technologies of 2018 and beyond. Let me introduce you the foundations of fintech and blockchain by Talentsprint in association with Ripple, PayPal, Paytm, ICICI Bank and Indian Angel Networks. This program covers both fintech and blockchain, a 4 months hybrid program with 32 online classes plus contact workshop for 8 days across cities Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi and Hyderabad. This would be with industry experts sharing their experiences. Who is this program for? This is for people, professionals working in technology, banking and financial service industries, professionals who are seeking for a role change and career upgrade. Current and future fintech and blockchain entrepreneurs with minimum 1 year of experience can enroll for this program. To know more about this program, you can write to us, you can call us, visit talentsprint.com/FTBC. Thank you. Hi Tasneem, this is a certification program and you would be certified by Talentsprint. Jagdish, minimum 1 year of experience is required in either banking industry or from IT. Any more questions related to the program? Hi.
So there's a question about from Ragasima, which asks, I am into law field with related to cybercrimes. Is it useful for me? So absolutely. In fact, legal is a domain or industry where blockchain has a lot of applicability. Imagine all the contracts people get into it, all the verification of those contracts and execution of those contracts and the maintenance of those contracts. How do you do it actually today? If you think about it, they're all on paper, they are stored somewhere, and when you need it, you actually cannot find them. And if you put it on a blockchain for all those legal transactions, all those legal contracts, you can create smart contracts on blockchain and they can represent your legal contracts. And if you store them on blockchain in a ledger which is immutable, which is available at any point of time, is what makes blockchain completely applicable to the legal department or legal industry or a legal domain as such. So absolutely, it's completely applicable to you. So Amar asked, what are the tech and tools used for blockchain? So there are numerous tools and technologies available for blockchain. So first we need to understand what blockchain is from scratch and build our concepts on top of it. Once we have the concepts built on top of blockchain, then we get into the tools and technology piece of it. So the first few days are just talking about blockchain as concepts, what are the different components it's built of, how they come together to create a blockchain solution. And then there are multiple tools and technologies like Ethereum. We will do deep dive on Ethereum as well. Ethereum provides a Solidity programming language my book is based on. So we'll look into Solidity as well. We have a capstone project on that. So you will be creating a complete decentralized applications on blockchain. There are multiple other tools like Truffle. I can name all of them right now, but just to name a couple of them like Truffle, TestRPC, which will be explained in depth in this program and can be used as part of development for the blockchain as well. Can you tell one industry where blockchain cannot be implemented, is asked by Basil. So anywhere that you have data and that data is of value, so anywhere you have digital assets, applicability, you can put blockchain into it. So if you're doing a transaction and if you're storing data or a digital asset, then you have an applicability of blockchain. And areas where you don't have these things like digital assets, or you don't want to have ownership of, maintain or verify or protect the ownership of digital assets, or you don't have transactions related to those digital assets, you don't need blockchain over there for sure. So for example, there are multiple activities which are not related to transactions, which could be put onto blockchain. Like maybe for example, if you are for example, if you are watching a movie, that kind of information might not be needed to be stored on blockchain. But if you are going and buying a ticket for a movie from a movie hall from a site, then that ticket transaction should be there on a blockchain, for example. So Kritika asked, who are the faculty and what are the experience they hold? So I am one of the faculties, and I can talk about myself. I'm an ex-Microsoft evangelist and an architect from Microsoft Consulting Services. I have been working on blockchain from those days. I've written 5 books, a couple of them on blockchain itself. I was part of Accenture prior to that for 8 years, working as a lead architect for the digital domain, and that's my experience. Completely into blockchain these days. So in fact, you can Google about me. You can get a lot of information about me as well. So that's a small introduction about me and my credentials. And similarly for Samir is a known leader and in the fintech space. He is one of the top 100 influencers in the country today on the fintech space, and a much known person in this area and from a knowledge perspective as well. So another question asked is, I'm just trying to figure out another question here. So Kaustav asked, during the course, we will get to learn how to design POC MVP using blockchain, Ethereum, other technologies. Absolutely. We will have a capstone project where you will be creating an application or a minimum viable product using blockchain, which will be done along with us, so that you have complete end-to-end understanding about how blockchain Ethereum works overall. Kunjan is asking, is there any specific technology background required like Java, .NET, web technology? No, there is no specific technology background required, but if you have 1 year of technology background, that is great. And it could be on Java, it could be on .NET, it could be on web technologies or any other technology. You should understand the basics of technology, and that's what is more important. So if you have 1 year of experience around or 1 year of knowledge about how you have been working on technology, that will be great to have. But needless to say, everything will be explained in detail in this program, so that even if you don't have much knowledge about technology, we'll ensure that you get started onto that before you come to the technology piece of it. So Ronak was asking, I'm not having technology knowledge, still how I make it more beneficial, because I am only versed with finance and capital market, will no touch with IT or tech. So Ronak, it's good. It is always beneficial to have some information about technology before getting into this program, but we will equip you with enough areas where you can know about a bit of technology before getting into this course. So there will be a bit of learning curve for you, but definitely we can provide you all the information and you can get started, because blockchain is not only technology, it's a mix of both business and technology. So until unless somebody who have good understanding, who don't bring both the things on the table, it is not, might not be as beneficial, but we will help you to get the technology piece as well, to make sure that you make the best out of it. So Mohan Raj is asking whether a card-based transaction system be migrated to blockchain. So any transaction can be migrated, any transaction-based system can be migrated to blockchain, because blockchain is a ledger which stores transactions which are verified by a lot of groups, a lot of people, and so it's the chances of having fraud, the chances of having any misadventure with blockchain-based system is negligible. And when you have such a system, obviously card-based transaction is one of the primary areas where you can change into blockchain-based system, and so definitely you can do that. So what are the hardware? So Salam is asking, what are the hardware challenges for blockchain technology? There is no hardware challenges for blockchain technology. Blockchain technology works very well with the existing hardware that you might have. So I am running my blockchain on my laptop. I'm running my own blockchain onto my virtual machines. I'm running my blockchain on cloud. I'm running my blockchain on-prem, and so I can run it anywhere. There is no hardware super requirements until unless you are doing millions of transactions every day. There are specific blockchain hardware requirements when you do mining, which is separate aspect of it, and we will explain in detail what are the requirements for that. But if you're not doing mining and you are doing a decentralized application, then there's no great requirement from a hardware perspective. So Kritika is asking, in the capstone project we will have practical access to any tools, and what if I do not have any IT or finance experience, what should I do? But I have 7 years of work experience on operations. So Kritika, actually what we will do is, when you join this program, we will give you the links, we will give you some of the videos, we will give you some information about how to have just the basic knowledge on technology piece, and that should be good enough for you to get going onto this program. Since you already have a lot of experience from a business point of view, you will have that information already, and we will build all concepts from scratch. So we will assume that from a blockchain perspective, you have no information. So we will build each concept on blockchain from scratch and and we'll progress on maturity level on that as time passes. So we'll build on these concepts all the rest of the capstone project as well. So it is about making sure that you learn this technology and implement it wherever you go in future. So I'm just looking for more questions here. So Rama is asking, I have a career break of 3 years. I was with banking. Can I take the certification course? Absolutely. I think it will make a big change in the way your career will shape up in future, because you already have some experience. You were part of banking, and banking is one of the main areas where blockchain is going to have big time effect on. So Kritika again asked, are you were talking about Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. These are cryptocurrencies of blockchain. I already explained that, so that has been taken care of. So what is the solution for scalability? Dinesh asked, which is also discussed. So there are solutions for scalability like proof of authority, for example, that can bring high level of scalability. And there are other chains, there are multiple chains like Hashgraph and all, which have high scalability uh, from a blockchain perspective. So Sabut asked how blockchain adoption could have stopped PNB scam. That's a great question. In fact, we have just written an article on that, which we'll be publishing soon, about how this entire thing could have been solved. The PNB thing would have been solved using blockchain. So look forward to it. So if I can't attend, Kunjan is asking, if I can't attend lectures in person, is there any provision for e-learning for this program? So
let me answer this question, Kunjan. This is an online course which happens twice a week. Okay, and if in case you miss any course, the videos would be available. So you can take this course from any part of world on. It's a weekday course. Mukesh has asked, can you need to know more about training structure? This is an online classroom as well as offline. There would be live sessions every week and one contact workshop every month over a weekend. Rajesh Chauhan, I would call you personally and give you more information on this program. Abdul, I'll call you and I'll give you more information on this program. Yes, there is a chance for you, Abdul. I'll contact and I'll explain you in detail. Any more questions? Mahesh, this would be post office hours. It would be from 6:30 to 8:30 in the evening. All right. So if you have anything to know about this program, or if you want to register for this program, you can visit our website. Else you can get in touch with me. My name is Amarnath. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining. It was great interacting with you, and hope to see you all again soon. Bye bye.